Today, approximately 4,500 years ago, a marvel was created in Egypt that continues to astonish people to this day: the Great Pyramid of Giza. Standing at a height of 147 meters, this was the tallest structure made by humans for about 4,000 years. The sheer weight of the massive stones used to build it is estimated to be around 6 million tons, making it heavier than the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building of today, which weighs only 500,000 tons. The most astonishing fact is that back then, there were no cranes, bulldozers, or advanced technology available. Yet these people managed to construct a monument that still stands today. Think about it. For 4,500 years, in scorching heat, enduring storms, rain, and weathering, nothing as old and large as this pyramid has survived. How did they do it? Let's understand the mystery of this pyramid in today's video. As we delve deeper into history, it becomes increasingly challenging to uncover exactly what happened, how, and when. It is estimated that the Great Pyramid of Giza was built in 2560 BC by Pharaoh Khufu, a ruler of ancient Egypt. Not much is known about these kings, except that they were from the 4th dynasty of the Old Kingdom of Egypt. There is much debate among historians about how long they ruled. Some estimate 23 years, others 34, and some even suggest over 60 years. Located along the Nile River, these pyramids are not standalone structures. In addition to the 3 main pyramids, there are other structures like the Great Sphinx, burial tombs, and smaller pyramids totaling 118 in various shapes and sizes. Many of these pyramids have deteriorated due to weathering, but the 3 best preserved ones are the Great Pyramid of Giza, Pyramid of Khafra, and the Pyramid of Menkaure. These monuments were not just built for show. They served as tombs where the pharaohs were buried. The ancient Egyptians believed in the afterlife, where the soul travels to the underworld after death. To prepare for this afterlife, the pharaohs built tombs filled with treasures, food, jewelry, furniture, and clothing, believing that these items would be useful in the next life. Upon their death, their bodies were mummified and placed in wooden or stone coffins inside the pyramids. But how do we know that these pyramids were intended for these purposes? There are 2 main reasons, my friends.
First of all, we have found inscriptions on newer and older pyramids, inscriptions on coffins, and texts inside pyramids that tell us what these people used to do. The majority of historical pyramids we have found are in the countries of Egypt and Sudan, where they were used similar to the tombs. However, specifically within the Great Pyramids of Giza, no substantial evidence of this pyramid has been found. People create their alternative theories about these things. When archaeologists went inside the Great Pyramids, they found only 3 relics and an empty coffin. It is believed that it belonged to Khufu, and there should have been treasures and jewelry around it. It is assumed that someone looted it over the years. Those who disagree with this have very strange alternative theories. One popular theory that is heard is that the Great Pyramids were a power plant that could generate electricity. Those who believe in it say that the ancient Egyptians knew about it, but what happened after that is unknown. I have repeatedly mentioned that conspiracy theories are made when there is no substantial evidence about something. However, these conspiracy theories are often so strange that they lack logical sense. If the light bulb really existed in ancient Egyptian times, why is there no evidence of it to this day? In reality, this artwork actually shows a story of Egyptian mythology. Another popular theory is that these pyramids were actually granaries used to store grain. This theory was proposed by American politician Ben Carson in 1998. According to his theory, these pyramids were built by Jesus Christ's father. My theory is that they were built for Joseph's purposes. Here you can see, friends, the second big reason behind creating conspiracy theories is religious appeasement by politicians. These things are quite clear. Historians today agree with each other that the Great Pyramid of Giza was built as a tomb. People at that time believed that the more magnificent the tomb, the more treasure and food we would keep, the better our king's afterlife would be. But now, the biggest question arises: how were these pyramids actually built? When seen in the right perspective, this is actually the most mysterious thing about these pyramids. How did the people of that time erect a 137-meter-tall building made of such large stones, each weighing between 2.5 tons and 80 tons? Each stone was cut so finely, even when there were no tools available for cutting. How were these stones stacked on top of each other without using wheels? And all this was demonstrated by them within 20 years. The time span is told within 20 years. The time it took to build the Great Pyramid of Giza is the most mysterious thing. Many theories are told about this, and this time I will not talk about conspiracy theories, which are very strange. But before discussing these theories, let's look at a big misconception that people have in their minds. In films, it is often shown that slave labor was used to build these pyramids. Poor servants were forced to work day and night, beaten by whips by their bosses. Do you remember in some movie you must have seen this? For a long time, people believed that.
The slaves were the ones who built these pyramids. A Greek historian living in the 5th century BC, Herodotus, was the first to suggest that the slaves built these pyramids. But today we know that this was not the case at all. The people working to build these pyramids were highly skilled laborers. They were not starved or beaten. They were fed so well that the average citizen living at that time was more well-fed than the people living in the cities. These laborers lived near the construction site and received support from different community members in different seasons, such as farmers who would come to help in construction during their free time. In a way, all the people living in the kingdom were quite united in the success of this national project. They had a lot of faith in their king. In total, about 30,000 workers worked 10 hours a day to build the Great Pyramid of Giza. Speaking of construction materials, about 5.5 million tons of limestone, 8,000 tons of granite, and 500,000 tons of mortar were used. Most of these stones came from the surrounding areas, with the majority coming from the southern Egypt region, which was 800 kilometers away. Copper was the most common metal used at that time, so the tools were made of copper. For the harder stones like granite, they were cut using dolerite. They had unique methods, such as finding cracks and holes in the stones, inserting wooden wedges, soaking them in water, and then letting them expand to break the stones. The biggest question is how these stones were moved. At that time, wheels and carts were not used, so there were no machines to carry these heavy stones. The most plausible theory is that they made rafts to bring the stones from far away, which floated on the river. Then, when the stones reached the pyramid, they used sledges to move them on wet soil. A very interesting theory that has recently emerged is from a study conducted in 2014, based on a painting found in the tomb of Hui, dating back to 1900 BC. In this painting, you can see about 170 people pulling a statue on a sledge, using ropes to pull such a heavy object. If you look closely at the painting, you will see how one man is pouring water in front of the statue. Initially, archaeologists thought this might be part of a ritual or tradition. However, when physicist Daniel Bourne and his team tested this, they found that a certain amount of water in the sand significantly reduces the friction on the ground. This ratio is quite precise, with 25% water making it much easier to move things in wet sand. The next question that arises is how the stones were placed on top of each other. How could such heavy weights be lifted without the use of machines? Usually a system of pulleys could be made to lift them.
But as I told you, the ramp that was not in existence during the 4th dynasty was not used for the construction of the pyramids. It was only used for pottery. So here, friends, a very unique system of ramps was created. In 2015, an English and archaeologist team uncovered a 4,500-year-old wooden ramp. Scholars said that a ramp of this kind must have been built at that time, which was a straight slope from the ground to the top. To push the stones up this slope, they used a system where they placed wooden posts around the stones. Then they used ropes to pull the stones up. This is somewhat similar to what you can see in the artwork. Physicist Joseph West suggested this in 2014. According to this theory, after completing each level of the pyramid, a new slope must have been created, and to ensure that the angle of the slope was not too steep, they must have taken the slope all the way back, meaning they started building the slope from further back to avoid too much tilt in the slope. Another theory suggests that they must have used a system of levers to stack the stones on top of each other, to irrigate their fields. Both theories sound good to hear, but the problem arises here in construction time. We know that the pyramids were completed within 20 years. Now, if 20,000 people were to transport stones here one by one, then a stone should be placed here every 3 minutes every day of the year. It seems quite unlikely that they worked at such a speed here. This is exactly the reason, friends, that to this day, this thing remains a big mystery. Both theories sound good to hear, but they do not fully explain exactly what happened here. Scientists know the exact chemistry of this, but scientists have not been able to recreate it. Finally, the last step of construction, the outer layer of the pyramids. It was made of very fine white limestone, meaning that when sunlight hit here, all these pyramids would shine in a very white color. This is something that has been broken after so many thousands of years. The outer layer of the pyramids has faded away except for the Khufu and Menkaure pyramids, but in the Khafre pyramid you can still see a little bit of this layer on top. Now, moving beyond construction, coming to the design of these pyramids, this is also a very fascinating thing. Do you know that these pyramids are designed in such a way that they point exactly in all 4 directions, north, east, south, west? There is a very small error here, a 1 to 1/15 of 1 degree error, which is a very small error. Almost assume that they are pointing accurately in all 4 directions. How is this possible? At that time, there was no compass. There was no modern technology, no GPS technology. So once again, researchers have tried to give their theoretical explanations as to how the Egyptians achieved such a high level of precision. A popular theory is based on the autumn equinox, when the Earth's tilt is such that day and night are exactly equal. The shadow cast on the ground is in a straight line, in the east and west directions. If the Egyptians used this, then the degree of error in their calculations would also be present in the shadow when the autumn equinox occurs. The second theory discussed here is about constellations. By observing the directions of the stars in the sky, the Egyptians aligned their designs accordingly. In 1989, Robert Bowell, an author and Egyptology enthusiast, formulated his Orion correlation theory. He stated that the 3 pyramids of Giza actually align with the 3 stars of the Orion belt in a straight line. He believed that this alignment was intentional, and that the ancient Egyptians had knowledge of astronomy. They used to track these stars at night and study them. According to him, they also harvested their crops at certain times based on this. Historians consider this to be a fringe theory, meaning it is not mainstream. Some points against this theory are that the pyramids were not planned or built at the same time. In 1999, when astronomers tested this theory and observed the stars of the Orion constellation, it was found that the pyramids do not align exactly as claimed. Moreover, the constellation itself has slightly shifted over thousands of years. The alignment of the stars is not the same as what we see today. This theory is important to discuss because it is a classic case where humans try to find patterns, whether they exist or not. When we do not have solid evidence for things, we tend to create our own ideas, and if we find any link, we believe it to be true. Taking this to a new level and exaggerating it leads to even more bizarre theories. Some people say that aliens built these pyramids because it seems impossible for humans to have done it. In my opinion, such bizarre theories should be questioned. It is a shortcut way to come up with some solution when we are unable to find one. It is better to acknowledge what we know and clearly state what we do not know. This way, future generations of Wikipedia, archaeologists, historians can research and provide a complete solution and explanation for these mysteries. If you found the video informative, please subscribe to this channel, like the video, and thank you very much, friends.